Hi, welcome to Business Time. I am Melisha. Now, today we're going to talk about the SBA as it relates to the updated syllabus. Now, I love the mark scheme because it's very detailed than what it was before. So at least it will help us to have a better understanding of what to do. So let's get right into it. Now, the first thing you must take note of is that the SBA report is 1,500 words. Now remember, the word count does not include things like the cover page, title page, table of contents, diagrams and tables, references, and appendices. And a thing to take note of as well is that it must be typed up using double line spacing. And the font size should be 12, and you can use either 3 font styles: the Times New Roman, the Calibri, or the Arial. All right, so you have to take note of those. Now you can find the mark scheme in the updated syllabus on page 50, and everybody should have a copy of the syllabus. All right, let's get right into it. So we see here, the first thing is the introduction. Now, the introduction has the background of the project. Now, take note, this has given us so much detail. The background should provide information about the organization that is relevant to the research topic. Now, you have to make sure that the information that you give on the background is related to the topic. So in all the information that you're putting about the business, you have to make sure that it is relevant to the research topic, the topic you are researching on. Okay? The next part of the introduction is the justification for the topic. Now, take note, it says justification for the topic shows how the project will contribute to a better understanding of business principles. And you do this in 2 ways. You look at it based on importance or benefit of a study to the researchers, that's you, the students who are doing it, the importance or benefit of a study to the organization being investigated. Now, I mean, what's the benefit to you? You know, you'll become more knowledgeable and so on and be able to apply the different principles, Also, to the organization, it can help the organization to improve if they are weak in that particular area topic you're looking at, and it will also help the organization to make more informed decisions. And so you have to look at these 2 areas. So for your introduction section, we must see you giving the background of the business, and of course, whatever information you're giving, it must be related to the topic. Yeah, any information on business must be linked in some way to the topic. And the justification must be done in 2 parts: the importance and benefit of it to you, the researcher, and also the importance or benefit of it to the organization, the research is being done on. So the next thing in the introduction section is that you must have your aim and objectives of the project. Now, your aim is to be concise and gives clear direction to the project, right? So, for example, you want to do an investigation on the leadership styles used at ABC Company Limited, and take note that you must have 2 objectives, right? No, I'm not saying that it has to be 2, but CXC says 2 objectives, you get 2 marks, right? Key thing about the objectives that you must observe is that those objectives are to be SMART. And you would have looked at that in Unit 1. For an objective to be SMART, it must be specific, it must be measurable, it must be achievable, realistic, and timely. An example of a SMART objective could be something like to identify 3 leadership styles used at ABC Limited for the past 3 years. right? So what I'm saying is that whatever your objective is, you must ensure that you see, you can pick out if it's, you can check to see if it's smart, right? If it's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So let's look at the lit review. You realize that the literature review section is different from what it was before, right? This is more detailed and more specific, which is what I like. Thank you, CXC, for making it clearer for all of us. All right, so your literature review is derived from two relevant and reliable academic sources. So whatever it is that you're writing in relation to your topic, you must make sure that you mention at least two sources, right? And the key thing here as well is that it's from an academic source. So, like a journal article, some prior research that was done before. Perhaps you can check this out on EBSCOhost, Google Scholar, academic peer review. So you can't just go and cite sources from a textbook or from just a newspaper article, right? You have to make sure that it's an academic source. Take note of that. So you need to do some more research on that, right? The lit review must provide understanding and insight into the key concepts being studied. Good. So whatever it is that you're doing, also make sure that you're able to give definitions of key terms. So for example, if you're looking at leadership styles, right, you would want to find out, get the definitions for like autocratic leadership style, democratic, laissez-faire, whatever it is that you're focusing on, you want to have key definitions, right? And you have to cite your sources using the APA format. That is critical. Look at this third part. Literature review provides a thorough treatment of academic works related to the research objectives. So full marks, the discussion of the academic work fully addresses issues, proposals, recommendations, observations, findings related to two research objectives. So whatever it is, right, based on your objectives, say you wanted to identify leadership styles and you also wanted to find out how effective the different the leadership style used by the business is, then of course you're going to try and get information from these academic sources on what they say about the leadership styles. Can make comparisons too on the different leadership styles, what is similar, how impactful is each leadership style. So you want to write it in a discussion format, right? So you're making your comparisons, you're also going to highlight differences, So at the end of the day, while you're doing this too, you're going to realize that you will have to, you may be required to come back and cite what was said in your lit review to support your conclusions and recommendations, right? So make sure again that you cite at least two relevant and reliable academic sources. Good, and we now know what academic sources are. Good. And remember to give definitions, right? You don't want them to be vague, and you're going to discuss them in relation to your objectives. And what sometimes I will tell my students to do is to perhaps write a lit review based on the objectives, right? You have a subheading with each objective because you want to make sure that you're thoroughly covering the different sections that you're going to be researching on. And of course, your teacher will guide you in terms of how long your lit review is supposed to be, because in everything that you're doing, you have to take into consideration the word limit, which is 1,500 words. Let's move on to the methodology. This is easier because of how specific they are. It really will guide you better. So the first thing is the research approach, design identified. So you have to identify the approach that you use, whether it be quantitative or qualitative, descriptive, case study, observation, survey, right? So you write on the approach or design that was used. Your research approach or design justified. So you're going to tell why you chose that approach, right? And in justifying it, it's always good as well to see if you can cite some sources to support your reason for using it. Good. And when you're citing your sources, while you're gathering and you get a source, make sure you put it in the reference or the bibliography. You don't want to forget your sources because your sources can be checked as well to see if you made up something or if it's actually true, right? For your research methodology, you are to describe all the following: data collection procedure. How did you collect your data? Your sample, what was your sample size? Your data source, data collection instrument. What did you use? Did you use a questionnaire? Make sure that you describe them, right? And in describing them too, if you're coming up also with us, if you're going to cite a source, always again, cite it properly. Your research instrument, you are to put a copy of your instrument, right, in the appendix. Now take note, they're even here where secondary sources are used. A screenshot of the identification page from the data source should be placed in the appendices, right? So whatever other secondary source you use, do a screenshot, okay? Guess what? Yes, it's a bit much, but you don't want to lose any mark at all. So you just want to follow. And everybody, you're so technologically inclined now, it's easy for you to do a screenshot, okay? Just do your screenshots and put them in the appendix. Now, the next thing is presentation of data. Data presented is relevant to the objectives of the project. Again, one of the things that you have to do is to make sure that your instrument contains questions relating to your objectives, because it's your objectives that you're going to create questions from, right? And so after you've collected your data, then you're going to present your data in the form of tables, graphs, charts, any of those, right? And you have to make sure that it's accurate. Be careful. So if you say that 5% of the respondents indicated that autocratic leadership style is used, we cannot look at the graph and be seeing 10% because you said 5%. So you have to make sure that it's accurate. And you have to appropriately label your tables, charts, and graphs as well. You want to label it properly so that somebody looking at your table, your chart, or your graphs can easily understand what it is saying, right? And you're encouraged as well to use more than one presentation format. Use 3 different data presentation formats. Yeah. So don't let it be that you only have charts. Don't let it be that you only have graphs. Don't let it be that you only have tables, right? Now, the next thing that you are required to do is to analyze your data, right? So it says data are summarized accurately using descriptive statistics. Now, one of the key things to remember, and you cannot afford to do, right? You have to make sure that if the charts or graphs, etc., have raw data, you analyze using a different form, such as percentage, fractions, or something else like that. I'm going to add another video to this that will give you an idea of how, best to analyze data, whether using the mean, the mode, the median, percentages, fractions. The aim is that if your data that was presented, whether in charts or so on, uses raw data, scores, when you're analyzing it, you cannot use the same raw data or scores. They're going to consider it not being analyzed, right? So you have to use a different format to do the analysis. So just remember, the format of numbers on charts, graphs must be different from what you are using to analyze your data, and you will do well. So here it is, note. Suggested data summary statements may include percentages, fractions, mean, mode, etc. Students cannot be awarded a mark for merely repeating any data that is already given in the table. So you have to give a little bit more information. So let's look at the next one, interpretation of results. And here what CXC says. The explanation should give some possible reasons for or implication of the results of the study. An appropriate explanatory statement may be, the results show that the sales staff had a higher motivation score than the production staff. The reason for this could be that the sales staff received bonuses while the production staff had a fixed salary rate. So you can give reasons based on your findings as well, whether from your questionnaire, your interview, whatever it is that you used. Or you can also find possible reasons from your literature review that would support the results of your data. So your interpretation of data of your results is you giving an explanation of why the results of the study are what they are, right? 3 explanation points, you get 3 marks. So make sure that you have 3 points. And look at this section here, comparison of the results with issues previously discussed in the literature review. And that's what I was saying earlier. Yeah, compare results, because what if in your literature review you found out that the autocratic leadership style is very demotivating for workers, right? Let's say you found that out from your research. No, if that was something that was supported in your lit review, then you can say this is supported by whatever source, that indicated that the autocratic leadership style demotivate workers. So you want to ensure that you interpret your results clearly, right? Comparison of results incorporate at least 3 issues raised on the literature review. So you're going to make comparisons as well. So you're explaining the results, right? And you're explaining by giving evidence of why the result is what it is, and you're also required to give some comparisons, okay? So your conclusions and recommendations now. Conclusions are logical and based on findings, because you cannot conclude on something that you don't know anything about. So your findings are what going to inform you of what to conclude on. So have two conclusions based on the findings, right? So you're not going to just conclude out of thin air. You're going to, based on what your findings indicate, then you are going to conclude based on that, right? So you're basically concluding based on the objectives. So you have 2 objectives. You're basically giving 2 conclusions based on your objectives. Recommendations are realistic and informed by findings, right? So it says 2 recommendations of either solutions to the problem found in the research or suggestion of ways to improve or enhance what is being done. So the research may have come up with a solution that you can suggest, or solutions that you can suggest, or you may just have come up with your own suggestions or recommendations based on your findings, right? Now, when you're giving your recommendation, look at this point. Guidelines for implementing the recommendations. Right. Take note. You have to cite sources, right, that you use to justify your recommendation. Why are you recommending that they do not use the autocratic leadership style? You have to cite sources because they say the autocratic leadership style demotivate workers, and so it's only necessary and important that the business remove that or refrain from using that leadership style. So you want to justify, right? Use sources to support your recommendations. You're not just putting down your recommendation on paper, right? But you're justifying your recommendation. Why your recommendation should be considered by the business. And you want to sound intelligent, don't it? Exactly. So let's look at 7, communication of information in a logical way using correct grammar. Now, a lot of times when we do write things and we don't check them after you send off the messages, and so you realize, oh my Lord, look at all these grammatical errors. And it's not a matter that you did not know the correct thing, but because you just didn't check your work. So it's important, right? Let somebody else read it for you too. Let somebody else check it, because you get marks for these things. You consistently use correct spelling. When you're in doubt, check it out. Consistently use correct grammar. You get marks also for expression of ideas, clear, concise, and coherent, right? So you want to make sure that you're using correct grammar all the way. Hey, that's 5 marks. That's 5 easy marks you can get, right? And you have grammar check apps and on the that you can use, right? Now, your references and citations. Acknowledge sources throughout the project. Citation must be correctly done. So remember, right, once it's not your words, you have to cite the sources and give credit. References for publications written in alphabetical order and include names of authors, publishers, and dates of publication using the APA format. So once you read up on the APA format, then you'll be able to cite properly and also do your reference properly. References for internet sites include title of article, address of website, name of authors or organization. Again, the APA format, so just look up research on the APA format, see how they cite their sources and how they do their references, and you will be good. So you get marks for the overall presentation of report. Your report is within the recommended word limit of 1,500 words. Take note again, right? And those things that are excluded, 10% of the score awarded will be deducted for exceeding the word limit. So try not to exceed the word limit, okay? Layout of the report follows correct format, includes a table of content and cover page with relevant information. So you want to make sure that you have all of that. And the total is 60 marks. Okay, so remember, I'm going to share a video, link a video to this that will show you how to, analyze data. So all the best on your SBA. Okie dokie. See you next time.